let's go into 12. Yeah. Good. Okay, so we're going to go into a case study about finding. So before we go into the case study about finding, just a kind of a brief recap, right? We're trying to find properties that haven't been renovated in the last 20 to 30 years because recent reno is a no-no. We're trying to buy properties that the seller needs to sell. You know, we're looking for the three Ds, and we're looking for a home that's in terrible condition. The worse condition, the better. So can't have been renovated recently. The people need to sell, and it's in terrible shape. The worse shape, the better. So if a property I'm interested in doesn't have at least one of those three, I won't do it. I won't start in. I'm trying to find a property that has all three. That's my goal. Somebody that needs to sell, hasn't been renovated, and it's in terrible shape. That's the best case scenario. So if you can find that, that's the trifecta is the holy grail. But you can flip houses with and make money with only one of those three things. Either somebody that needs to sell, death, divorce, displacement. You can also easily find properties that haven't been renovated. Remember, again, we were talking about here in San Diego, you see it all the time, a house that, you'll see these homes that a lot of the cookie cutter subdivision homes in Carlsbad where there was like 5 models to choose from. And like somebody had a base model and it's a nice enough home, it's fine, but it's got that kind of medium brown, lightish brown wood cabinetry from the 90s, that light brown or whatever it is. And you think, well, that doesn't look good. And you think, well, I can go in and I could paint those cabinets or replace the cabinets or something like that. But basically, if the cabinets were functioning, they might not look great. It might not make the house sell fast. But if people can move into the house right now and use it as it is, that's not a good flip. It's just not going to be good. There's not enough value add in there to make it worth your while. Here's what I want you to try to focus on. If you guys want to flip 50 houses a year, that's great. The most I bought 53 homes in 1 year. That was my record. 1 year I bought 53 homes. Look, if you want to do that, that's okay. For me, I prefer to just cherry pick a few deals here or there, the very best ones, and then just focus on that, rather than try to spread myself thin over like 4 deals that had an okay margin. Just wait, and then strike. And you can do the same thing. So, yes, questions?
I was going to ask about those like cookie cutter homes. So like, would those just be kind of like off the market for like flipping? Because like generally they stay functional for a while because it's like nothing crazy.
Yeah, super good question. So, and the answer is going to really get to the crux of my entire training here. The questions he asked is, well, what about the fill in the blank? And the flaw is in the question. The flaw is the premise of his question and how he thinks right now. I'm going to use him as an example because he's a good, strong kid, can take it. His question is so wrong from a house flipping standpoint, because he said this: what about those, fill in the blank, what about those houses that are cookie cutter? Because, they're kind of just functional and anybody can kind of live them. Okay, well, let's take it. What about those condos that are this? Or what about the homes that, these houses have basements and a lot of people like basements? Or what about, I've heard living on a golf course is really scary because golf balls hit the houses. So what about that? In everything you fill in the blank, you've already asked the wrong question. The product of real estate doesn't matter. It's a widget. If it's the property that's a cookie cutter, if it's a property on a golf course, if it's an Airbnb, if it's undeveloped land, if it's a condo on a ski slope, if it's a house on the beach or a house on a subdivision or a house in a cookie cutter, that doesn't matter. The end product of what it is doesn't matter. It's, did you buy it 20 to 30% below market value, and is there a market for that property to be sold right now? It doesn't matter what the property is. And that's where we've all been taught wrong. You've been taught location, location, location. That's what you've been taught. You've been taught the kitchen's the most important room in the house. You've been taught stay with neutral colors and an open floor plan. All of that is complete dog shit. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have anything to do with the house flipping business. Location, location, location is the biggest scam in real estate. Having an open floor plan, having the kitchen and doing a nice garage and having a killer master bedroom with a nice spa. That's just details. It doesn't matter. You're concentrating and focusing on the wrong thing. Those are all subjective decisions. Subjective decisions are completely irrelevant. We're talking about contracts and math. So when you tell me, hey, what about this type of property? You've already lost. Because it doesn't matter what the property is. What matters is you're buying that type of property 20 to 30% below market value for what it would sell for right now. That's your built-in profit. From there, then you can decide how bad is it, can I fix it up for the value add? But where everyone gets stuck in the real estate business is viewing the home as, it's almost like you put yourself into the situation. And you say, well, I could live in a cookie cutter one like that. You're thinking of the end user as an actual physical home. And remember in the beginning, I thought you've got to think differently. You've got to view the real estate as almost like a widget. So it doesn't matter if it's and I didn't mean to pick on, it was a great question. I didn't mean to pick on my man here, Marcus. It was a good question. But whenever that question, what about the type of property that, and fill in the blank, I don't want to hear it. It doesn't matter. Can you get that property 20 to 30% below market value? And are there comparable sales of similar properties in that area that will sell? And if there's not, then it doesn't matter how you're getting it, or it doesn't matter the cookie cutter part of it. What matters is, and I'm going to have you write this down, what matters is all of the money in real estate is made when you buy the property, not when you sell. 100%, not 100, but the majority, the bulk, the overwhelming majority of money that you're going to make in the real estate business is made when you buy the property, not when you sell it. When you sell it, that is just the logical conclusion to your hard work. That is the logical conclusion to what you mapped out. That is what you would anticipate you're going to have happen if you follow the steps and the plan that you set for yourself when you started. That will all work itself out, but the money is made when you buy the property. The type of property that you're buying is irrelevant. It's irrelevant because we're buying it right. Now, I personally focus on fix and flip single family homes. I'll go single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex. I won't do bigger than a fourplex, generally speaking. 0 to 4 units is kind of what I specialize in. 1 unit is my favorite because I like to flip multi-million-dollar properties. But I didn't start out like that. And you don't either. You don't have to either. My first property I ever flipped, it was an $80,000 house. You don't even have to flip houses. You can start wholesaling right now. We're going to go into that in just a little bit. But the point that I want to just really just drill down right here is, if you're asking me any questions about a specific property, you've already lost. Okay? You're already done. Back up and switch lanes because you're doing the wrong thing. Just remember, 20 to 30% below market value. The final product, that's fine. You're going to find your niche. It could be cookie cutters. It could be condos. It could be luxury properties. It could be mobile homes. It could be whatever you want it to be, but you have to buy it right up front, then renovate it, and that's where the value add is. So the type of product is going to be determined by that particular product's ability to sell at that current value at any snapshot in time. So when Marcus's question was, hey, what about these cookie cutter homes that, you know, they kind of have the basic bland, vanilla, regular stuff and people can just live in there? Yes, that's right. Can you still renovate that home? Yes, if it hasn't been renovated in the last 20 to 30 years, if it's in bad shape, and if you're buying it 20 to 30% below market value, you can definitely make money on that house. And it doesn't matter that it's cookie cutter, and it doesn't matter that it's a subdivision, or it doesn't matter. The only time this doesn't, as we go through the training and you learn about comparable sales and how to justify the value and figure out the value, it basically doesn't matter what type of property, what the end property is, as long as there are 3 comparable sales that will back up the value of that property, and as long as you're buying the property right, you're going to be safe as kittens. So that's what we're looking at. But it is a great question. Okay, other questions before we go to the next? Yes, Jonah.
Can you contact the owner of the property if was removed from the MLS because it wasn't a school?
Yes, great question. Jonah's question was, can you go directly to the property owner? She was specifically asking, let's say the property was on the MLS, it drops off the MLS, it's no longer for sale on the MLS, but can you contact the property owner directly? And the answer is yes. That's how I have got most of my properties in my early careers. I went directly to the owner. I found out who owned the property. In most circumstances, when I was making offers on property, when I first got started out, the home wasn't even for sale. The home wasn't even for sale. I would contact the owner and say, hey, I noticed you have a rental house down there on 600 South. Would you be interested in selling that property? I'm looking for a property in that area. That's how I go about it. So yes, you can always contact the seller unless the seller has a realtor involved in the transaction already, and there's already a realtor involved. Don't contact the seller. It will not be worth it. You will have a crud storm like you can't believe. So if the property is listed, or if they're already working with a realtor, move on to the next one. Yes, John.
So you said you don't use a realtor to buy a house, so then are you an agent yourself?
No, great question. No, that's a really good question. So John asked, if I'm not a realtor, then how do I don't use a realtor to buy the property? What do I do? Great question. So I act as my own realtor. Now I have a little more knowledge and experience than most of the people in this room, so I feel very, very comfortable acting as my own realtor. I will tell you this: the reason I don't use a realtor when I'm buying and I'm not a realtor. The reason I'm not a realtor is because you get some knowledge when you're an actual realtor, okay? They lay out all these laws about what you can and cannot do. And some of this, I never do anything illegal. I never do anything immoral. I never do anything unethical in the business world. I just don't. But there are some things that are frowned upon, and a realtor would never do them. But me, as a non-realtor, I can do whatever I want. So that's why I'm not a realtor. No. So I'm comfortable writing my offers. I'm comfortable representing myself. Some of you may not be at that level yet. You better get there quick, and we can talk more about that later. Yes, question?
Quick question. If you were to approach, like go door knocking on a door, do you act eager to purchase the home, or is there like a way to not seem so eager?
Yeah.
If you want the property?
Great question. There's some people that have had some experience knocking doors, some in this room, whether it was door-to-door sales or door-to-door selling Jesus. There's some people that have knocked on doors, and one thing that you're going to notice when you knock on a door is you're going to get a variety of responses, and it's really going to depend on the door that you knock and the person on the other side of that door. There's no way to say how you should act or shouldn't act, because the second that door opens up, you're into a one-on-one with some other person, and people are funny. But generally, what you're speaking is. The way that I have found to have the best results is, hey, I love this neighborhood. I've always wanted to own a house. I've always wanted to own a house in this neighborhood. Are you selling? Do you have anyone who's selling? That type of thing. And that way you're not lying too. You have always wanted to own a house there. You may want it as a rental. You may want to live there. But you can contact the sellers. Go to owners directly. Most of the time when you knock on the door, it's going to go badly, very badly. A lot of times, like, what are you doing here? Get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. Again, these are uncomfortable conversations. It's not easy. Knocking on a door and asking if they want to sell their house or know of anybody in the neighborhood who wants to sell a house is not easy. But that's how these deals are found. It's that simple. Okay, yes, question, Darren.
But it still goes through escrow.
Everything goes through escrow. Great question. Darren's question was, well, you're acting as the realtor, but you still go through escrow. Yes. I always use a title company, escrow company when I close because I want everything buttoned up and legal. And also, a lot of times I'm buying directly from a seller, and I don't want that seller to be able to say, hey, Chad's a real estate expert. He took advantage of me and did this weird kind of close thing. No. Instead, I say, okay, seller, thanks for selling me the house. We're going to get in touch with an escrow company. We're going to do title insurance. I'll put the earnest money deposit with the escrow company, that sort of thing. So it still goes through escrow. It still goes through, everything is identical to a normal purchase. There's just no real estate commissions. Say that?
And with the contract.
Yes, there's nothing different on that. It's just there's no realtors involved. So you're the realtor, and here's the beauty, and I stress this, and we'll get over to this in the flipping part a little bit, because this section is supposed to be on finding, but we've dabbled into a little bit of flipping. So I want to tell you the good thing about the contract is, in house flipping, you'll see me get animated about a couple things, especially when I know that people have been taught the things that are wrong or ineffective, and I want to correct those. I want to correct those things. But basically, by not using a realtor, that's where all the profit is. The good news about the contract is the contract benefits the buyer. Make no mistake, the contract is written to benefit the buyer. It is a buyer's contract. For example, in real estate, the buyer has the option to purchase the property. The seller is obligated to sell. So if they put the house up on the MLS and they say, hey, we're offering this home for sale for $100,000, and you come to them and say, here's $100,000, they're required by law. They have to sell you that house. They can't back out. But you can get out 1,000 different ways. The contract is written to protect the buyer, not the seller. So to be successful in the real estate business, you use the state-approved purchase contract form, and you write the clauses that you want to protect yourself as you're writing the contract. And I can teach you a couple of those things that you put in the contract a little later. Question, Fred?
Back to the finding, the professional funnel you mentioned. You'd like to go and golf with them or see them face to face. What if I want to buy homes in like Wyoming or Nevada or Tennessee or somewhere?
Super great. Yeah, that would work really well because you're in San Diego and you would position yourself, say, I'm a Southern California real estate investor. I've had some luck out of state. Recently, I've turned my eye towards Wyoming. Here's what I'm looking for specifically. I'm a cash buyer. So you would position yourself here as a cash buyer for there, and say I have a team. I'm building. I have a team on the ground, or I've got a team there that'll take care of it. I work out of California, but right now we're acquiring properties in Wyoming. So you would just position yourself. Look, the crazy thing is, the truth is always going to work. What did I just say? I'm Fred, and I'm calling a lawyer in Wyoming. Hi, lawyer in Wyoming. My name's Fred. I'm a San Diego resident. I'm an investor here in California. I've really been eyeballing some of that stuff up there in Wyoming. I've decided I'm going to take some of it down. I'm coming in. What do you got for me? Okay, that's all true. As of this moment, everyone in this room is a real estate investor. That's it. Do you think it requires some kind of license? Do you think it requires some kind of test? Do you think it requires some kind of credit score? Experience? Money in the bank? It doesn't require jack stuff. Nothing. It doesn't require anything. Right now, just say, I'm a real estate investor. That's it. I'm a real estate investor. You're not? What do you mean? You're not? Who's going to question that? Look, if you believe it, they'll believe it.
Okay, so we offer a cash buyer for
Yeah.
the 8 hours in closing.
Yes.
And no contingency.
Yes.
For me, it's impossible.
Yes. Yes.
You're gonna train us how to be possible?
I'm going to train you how to make it possible. Actually coming through on that is really difficult. That's what you say up front, and that can be done. Because at any time, if the deal makes enough sense, anyone in this room could get the money in 48 hours and close in 48 hours. It'll never come to that. Ever, 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 ever. It's almost physically impossible to search title and draw up contracts and close in 48 hours. It's almost impossible. It can be done. But that's not the point. The point is you hit them, boom, over the head with that. They're going to be so stunned and amazed, well, 48 hours, it's never going to come down to that, ever, ever, ever. But you could, and here's how you would do it. If the deal is good enough, you would come to me or someone like me. We're going to use me in this example. And you would say, hey, I've got a deal, here are the numbers. If the numbers make sense, we do what's called, we pull the fire alarm and we close in 48 hours. I don't like to do that. That's not a great way to go about business, but it's a great thing to say about business. And the reason you say it is because if push comes to shove and you had to do it, you could. It will never come to that. What always happens is, what you're doing now is you're saying this to people in your conversations. You're not actually writing that down right now in your offer, okay? You say these things, and you could do that, but they know that everything takes longer. They're going to have to, here's how you say it. I can close in as little as 48 hours, something like that. But here's the thing. You're saying that because that could be done. And what you'll do, and you actually, because of the where you are, you just have to make sure that you have an exit clause too, though, right? That's the big key. Closing, as long as you have an exit clause, then you can go ahead and write the offer. But I would never write in writing 48 hours, all cash close, no contingency. That's what I would say. I can do that. That's not the way I would go about it. And here's how this works. In every single real estate transaction that goes through and closes, money is going to have to come from somewhere and get to the seller somehow, right? Most of the time, an offer comes in, some money goes to the title company, and then the title company sends the money to the seller, right? Well, that process that money can come from anywhere over here. That could come from your personal checking or savings account. That could come from a hard money lender. That can come from a gap funder. And we'll talk about how the money part of it works in the funding portion. Everybody will learn about how to do it and how to answer that question a little more carefully. But let me just tell you this. In 33 years of me telling people, look, I can close in 48 hours, I've never, ever, 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 ever had someone come to me and say, I got to close in 48 hours. It just never happens. Ever, 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 ever. I mean, the shortest, I maybe had one where somebody said, like, if you don't close by Friday, I'm going to find somebody else or something, and it was like Monday. But there's always plenty of time, because what ends up happening is you tell them that you can be an all-cash buyer in 48 hours. They don't automatically think, okay, I'm going to have the money in 48 hours. They think, okay, that's good to know that somebody's there that can close. They understand title's going to have to be searched. They're going to understand. Also, they may not be able to sell it. The property may be occupied. Somebody might live in the house and they can't sell or get out. You say that because it's a lot of sizzle, and yes, you can do it, but that's not necessarily. It's like this. They have the Black Friday TV that you can buy for $99, and it's normally like $5,000, right? And on Black Friday around Christmas time, somebody says, hey, we got these TVs here. Well, they only have a few number of the TVs, and you could maybe get the TVs, but what they're really trying to do is get you into the store to buy all the other stuff. You're saying, I can close in 48 hours is like you saying, hey, I've got this Black Friday sale TV right here. This $5,000 TV is only $100 or whatever. You're giving them something to get in the door, to say, hey, I'm a closer. I can take care of this. And if you did get push comes to shove, you could close that soon, but we'll make sure that you never have to. Yes?
Regarding the clauses and stuff and crafting a contract, will you teach us that, or?
This class, not going to teach a lot about, I will teach you what to write in the contract, a couple of things.
Okay.
But this class is a little bit more advanced, more on not so much on the nuts and bolts. But I will tell you a couple of things when we get to the flipping. When we talk about contracts, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that you must put in the clause. Okay. Yes.
What's a typical timeline for a flip?
So the typical fund, that's a great question. David asked what's the typical timeline for a flip, and although he didn't ask, I'm going to answer this in two parts. What is the typical timeline to close on a flip? Normally, the normal time frame from when I identify a property to when I actually close is usually within about 30 days. Sometimes it could be a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, but usually it's within about 30. If the property's in probate or there's some other legal, it could take, a few months or 6 months or a year. It could take a long time. So depending on that, that's two separate questions. Dave asked, how long is the flip? And then I answered the first part of the question was, how long does it take till you close on the flip? Jonah wanted to know, hey, how do you close in 48 hours? You don't usually close in 48 hours. You never usually have to close within a week. You should almost always have at least a week. Most of the time you have a month or 5 weeks. We'll talk about that more in the contract phase. And then the actual flipping depends on the amount of work associated with the flip. It's really a good idea to be in and out of the flip in 6 months. It's really a good idea. Just 6 months kind of being the goal. A lot of people say you can do it in 90 days. If you can, that's great. It just ends up taking a little longer by the time you renovate it and put it on the market. And then the people that buy it are usually going to get a mortgage, and then they're going to have to wait 30 or 40 days to get their funding and that sort of thing. So ideally, it'd be great if you could flip a property in 90 days. It normally ends up taking about 6 months. Okay, other questions? All right, let's go into this case study here and see what we got.
Now you have the blueprint and process required to create a property finding funnel. This means you can have properties finding you rather than you finding them. 3 of my last 4 projects that I flipped, I used these exact strategies and methods, including my most recent flip that generated a gross profit of over $1 million. This can serve as a case study of how this method can work in your situation. And no, I don't expect you to make $1 million profit on your next flip, but you need to understand that the funnel system works for any kind of property, from a multi-million-dollar house to a small condo. The first house I flipped was only $85,000. I worked my way up in this business, and as I gained experience and knowledge, I was able to take on more expensive properties, which have much more profit potential. Now I've been fortunate enough to be able to specialize in $1 million flips. So how did I find this property? Well, I followed the steps in my training. I met an estate attorney and told him the types of properties I was interested in. He immediately sent me a few to look at. The first 2 didn't align, but the third was a perfect fit and matched all of my criteria. It had one of the 3 critical Ds. The original owner had passed away. It was a property that needed to be sold. It hadn't been renovated since the 1980s, and it was in really, really bad shape. It had mold, water damage, a leaky roof, there were termites and wood rot, the original old appliances, broken irrigation pipes, cracked and uneven concrete. There were broken windows, poor lighting, outdated everything. There was this odd adobe-looking fireplace in the middle of a room. But all of that are what contributed to me getting such a good deal when I purchased the property. The money was made when I bought the house. I intercepted it before it hit the market. And here are the final numbers. I paid $1,285,000 for the house. I put about $600,000 in renovation into the property. And then I sold it for $3,275,000. So in total, I increased the value of that home by about $2 million more than what I paid for. And I bought that house with 100% financing. No money out of my own pocket, no credit checks, no tax returns. In my funding video series, I cover how to do that. So keep that in mind if you need to learn more about funding and writing offers. Well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this training series as much as I've enjoyed making it. I encourage you to stick with this because consistency is what will make this formula highly effective for you. Thank you again for joining my course. Now is the time, so go get after it. And if you need any help, please let me know.
Okay, so case study. So I was playing golf, and I meet this super nice doctor, and the doctor says to me, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm like, "I'm in the house flipping business." "Really? You have anything to do?" "Yeah, come check out some." I show him a couple houses. He says, "That's pretty cool. I'd like to do that." I said, "Okay, here's what you do. Find an estate attorney. Find somebody who's, an accountant. Find some properties," and kind of told him what to do. And he said, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that. He goes out, calls me back, says, "Hey, I think I found one." He didn't find one. He found like 3 deals, like within, I don't know how long after. And so this method will work when you put it into play. So, you can just Start your funnel right now. You start it with your family and friends, and then you expand it to the professions, and you just keep growing and growing and growing. And eventually, everybody's just going to know that you're the property person. That's it, that you're the go-to person. So that's how you do it. You find properties that haven't been renovated in 20 to 30 years, that are in terrible shape. That's where the real money is. You don't want to find one that you think you're getting a good deal on. You're like, oh my gosh, we don't even have to do that much to this house. Like, if we really just repaint it and change the cabinets, everything else would be great. No, there's going to be something that goes wrong. There's just not enough money. There's not enough profit potential. Every time you have to pay to renovate some part of the house, you're going to get 2.5, 3 times your money back as what you put in. So if there's only $10,000 worth of renovations to do, I can't imagine you making $30,000 in profit on that house. I can't imagine it. It's too livable. If the home is too livable in its current state, you're not going to flip it and make a huge profit. It needs to be yucky. Here's the real way you make money. You buy houses that nobody can get a loan on, because this is what, nobody could have got a loan on that house. Anybody who wanted to buy that property, the roof was leaking, there was mold, there was termites, there was literally, I don't know if it was a pigeon or a hummingbird, some kind of bird was like under the couch and died and had molted so far that it was just a skeleton. Even the feathers had molted away. That's how old the house was. That's how kind of, and it's fine. That's just what happens. You live and you get more stuff and get more stuff and get more stuff, and you just, you don't end up renovating, and I'm going to get to it, and you don't do it. The house comes, a little bit older. And in this particular house, the gentleman, nice guy, had actually passed in the home. And so, hazmat had to come and do the remediation and all that sort of thing. But this is a great case study, and I believe that it really makes it crystal clear exactly what I'm talking about how I had met a friend and said, hey, we need to, we talked to estate attorneys and we're looking for people who have passed away. Those are the kind of properties. It was within 6 months he came back to me and said, I think I've got a couple. I'm like, what? I started looking at them. So that's how it works. You connect with people, they go out to there. Because remember, you know a bunch of people, but you don't know all of the people that those people know. Everybody in this room, there's that thing, we're probably all connected by 6 degrees of whatever. Well, everybody in this room is connected by a maximum of 2 degrees away from me. You either know me, came here because of some kind of connection with me, or you know somebody real close to me who got you here. So that connection is there, and you see how that can work. Well, think about all of the people that you know, but now think of all of the people that they know that you don't know. And that's how it works. So your mindset has to change from, hey, I'd like to get into house flipping, to, hey, I'm an active house flipper, I need more deals. And here's what happens. You tie up all the deals you can. Whatever you can't do, maybe I can do them with you. If I can't do them with you, fine, you wholesale them. We're going to talk about wholesaling in a little bit, because wholesaling is such a great way for the average person with no money and not a lot of time and not a lot of energy. Wholesaling can be a really good thing. Okay, property finding walkthrough. Yes, question.
So you're coming in, you're saying I want it 23% below market value.
Yes.
But then you're going to do all these renovations.
Yes.
How are you estimating? Does that 20-30% include the renovations that you're going to be doing?
No, great question. Let me answer Mike's question. So he's saying, Chad, you're going to buy the property 20 to 30% below market value, but you still, it's a separate thing you're talking about fixing the house up. Yes, the fixing the house up part of it, where you're going to go in and move a wall and expand the kitchen and change the bathroom and all of that part of it, that is the normal house flipping business that you see on TV. From HGTV, the TV shows, and all that kind of fluff. That's their version of house flipping. That's not house flipping. That's house decorating. That's house designing. That's house improving. That's not house flipping. That stuff you see on TV is not real, and that has so little to do. Those are all house flipping shows. It has absolutely nothing to do with house flipping. Like 5% of that crap they show you matters. It's so irrelevant. And then they show you all these numbers, and their numbers are all crazy. But you have to get back to Mike's question, the 20 to 30% is just your safety valve, your guaranteed profit, your, hey, I'm not going to get hurt if I do this deal. And since you have that as your mindset going up front, whatever you do renovate and spend on, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But those are two separate calculations. The 20 to 30% is the non-negotiable. You have to buy this house off market without any competition. Because that way you're just guaranteed not to lose money. Because otherwise what ends up happening is, if you're just relying, yes, you can go out and you could go out and find a house on the MLS and buy it and renovate it and sell it and make a tidy profit. No problem, you could do that. But in my experience, listen, I have looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions. I have lent out over $3.5 billion to real estate investors like you, okay? My average loan size is only $264,000. If my average loan size is $264,000 and I've done $3.5 billion in loans, that means I have to be doing a loan every day for over 30 years, and that's what I've done. So I have seen every kind of transaction you can possibly imagine, and I've seen how they go into them and where their numbers are and where they make their mistakes. And from a hard money lending standpoint, I can tell you up front that most of the people in the house flipping business lose money when they flip a house, and they just don't realize it. We're going to go into why in a second, because they didn't calculate a lot of things that they should have calculated on. And at the end, they get a check. And they show the check like, look, I flipped this house. And I can look at that check, and I can tell you that check is not what you think it is. Did you think about this? Did you factor in this? What about this cost? What about that? And although there may be money at the end, listen, you have got to get this part through your head, that the house flipping business, as you know it, is just a mirage. That's just an illusion. You can do that, but the only way to really have success is to get this built-in profit up front, because there are too many things that could go wrong when you start flipping the house. We'll get into this case study and talk about a couple things that I went through. Yes, question?
So when you're pricing at 20 to 30% below what it would sell for today, as is, what are you using?
Great question. So how do I determine that? Okay, so the quickest, easiest way to determine the price of the value of a property is through an appraisal. That's the fastest, most reliable, best way. Now, appraisers are notoriously unreliable, and there can be a great variation, but it's a good barometer. It's a good idea, a good starting point. So an appraisal will usually tell you that. At my level, I don't really need the appraisal. I can look at the comparable sales. So I can just look at data. It's like watching the movie The Matrix, where just the numbers are going by, and they're watching Neo and what's his face fight it out, but it just looks like code. That's what it is for me. I just look at the numbers, because I don't care how cute that house is. I don't care how well decorated that house is. I don't care that this one has an open floor plan. I don't care that this one has a master suite to die for. All of that crap is so irrelevant. How many square feet is it? When was it renovated? How much did it cost to renovate? What's the cost right now? What are the comparable sales around it? Not how open the floor plan is or all the other decorating things they talk about on house flipping shows. House flipping is contracts and math, not carpet and paint. It's contracts, math. That's it. Contracts never lie. Math never lies. Math will not change ever, and you write the contract. If contracts and math are all it takes to be really protected in the house flipping business, and you control both of those, and you're buying 20 to 30% below market value, you have a bulletproof built-in profit wall set up front. And at any time, if it gets dicey, if the markets, we're going to war, everything's getting crazy, you pull the ripcord and dump the property. And everybody gets their money back, and you get out unscathed. Instead, what everybody else does is they get in, they try and save the property, and then they try to, well, let's wait this storm out. Well, if we fix this room up, let's get some more money and build that garage. You know, everybody says, man, this house would just sell if it had a bigger garage. Let's add the new garage on. No. You dump, cut your losses, and move on. Fred.
So you're saying 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
Historically, what is the renovation percentage of the, is it another 5%?
No. So I would say on average, I would say the renovation costs are usually, 20 to 30% of the purchase price of the house is what you'll spend. So you buy a $200,000 house, you'll probably spend 50 or 60,000 on renovations. On this house, $1.2 million, you spent 600,000 on it. So
When you buy the house, you're buying the house for the comparable, for the lowest comparable, and then you're selling the house, you're trying to sell it for the most.
well, what you want to do is I love looking at the low comps. That's my favorite thing. Like if you're buying and you're below all the lowest comps and you're 20 to 30% below the low comps instead of the middle comps, that's awesome. Yeah, it's great to sell. It's great to sell at the top, and that's the goal, although it's not always going to be, timing. When I sold this house, I actually set the new price point per square foot in the colony of Olevenhain. Up until that point, nobody had ever gotten, what did I get, $1,300 a foot or something. It was the most expensive home ever sold in Encinitas, in Olevenhain, per square foot. Okay, so let's walk you had a question, Dave. You had one more question, Dave.
Similar to this, just how, once you purchase the property, how do you determine how much renovation?
Yeah, so we do go in that flipping. Just remember this, you touch every surface. Just remember that. You touch every surface.